I have translated all 13 lore tablets found on flower-shaped sky islands into modern English. If you're here just for the translations, here's the timestamp. For everyone else? Oh boy, this one was a ride! See, when the lore tablet fell down to Lookout Landing, prompting Wordsworth to translate it, I was beyond excited. Only to learn that due to the vast expanse of time separating the founding era from modern times, the text contained upon the tablets was completely and utterly incomprehensible. I could pick out names, sure, but everything else basically read as gibberish. But Wordsworth came to the rescue and provided Link with his interpretation of the gist of the text. Problem solved, right? Well, no. Because I'm the Drake to at least attempt to read that incomprehensible text despite being provided an interpretation, I've picked up on some things. Namely that Wordsworth is guessing a lot, and missing some of the really blatant details, such as mentions of the future in fragments relating to Zelda. As a result, his conclusions aren't always accurate. Now, I don't blame him for guessing. Guessing is part of the process. Sometimes, the best you can do is make an assumption and run with it until you find a piece of text that disproves it. Languages are complex little buggers, and reverse engineering them based on limited material is no easy feat. That said, I think we can do a little better than what Wordsworth has to offer. Here's what I did. I have transcribed all of the writings, took them to my layer, and got to work. I quickly noticed that the vast majority of words are actually fairly similar to their modern counterparts. They either differ slightly in spelling or are completely botched, but when said out loud, sort of sound like a modern word. As an example, this word gave me quite a bit of trouble. It doesn't really look like anything, but if you try to play a little with the pronunciation of it, sodden, sodden. So basically that was the process. I performed what I would call a naive translation. Painstakingly, word for word, I have rewrote all the passages. Where I could not for the life of me make any sensible guess which modern word I should put in instead of the ancient one, I've left it as is. The result was still a jumbled mess. This method of translation doesn't exactly account for grammar, and the sentence structure itself is very different in ancient Hyrulean than it is in modern language. It did, however, provide some much needed clarity. From there, I have corrected the grammar of the assumed translations to more closely match modern speech, and then began the process of even more painstakingly going through each and every one of the original transcripts, this time creating a work-in-progress dictionary. I would write down every word encountered, along with the translation I've assumed to be correct for it. As I went, I would check with entries I've already made to confirm if the new word is unique, and if it was not, if the translation I've assigned for it was consistent across all entries it appeared in. If a word used in different contexts could be translated the same way every time, it added some validity to the initial guess. Whenever I encountered words which visibly shared a root word, examples here, I would write them down next to each other, for ease of cross-referencing later. This way I have created a dictionary, totaling 305 positions, many of which contained whole families of words. After this was done, I took a break. You can only look at the same pieces of text over and over again for so long before going insane. That was nice. Refreshed, I started looking at arguably the lifeblood of grammar, verbs and pronouns. First off, I've made a pronouns table with all the basic pronouns and then another one with all the possessive versions and the like. I filled it out based on the dictionary, marking all the pronouns which didn't appear in the text with a dash. Interestingly, his, her, and them all had two alternative spellings across the text. At this point, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, so I just left it, and I have moved on to the verbs. Verbs. Verbs were an absolute goddamn mess. In the making of the dictionary, I have found a total of 8 verbs with alternative forms. Some of them clearly irregular, some with different suffixes. Which, don't get me wrong, these were already messy, but nothing here would even begin to compare to the holy triforce of verbs: be, have, and can. I have found 3 different spellings of have, 7 different spellings of can/could, and the grand total of 12 different versions of to be and its conjugations. Because I felt like just looking at this could drive me crazy, I gently shoved that to the side and started by looking at the aforementioned 8 sad normie verbs. I looked at them for a while, nodding thoughtfully, before I decided on 3 assumptions about the rules these things abided by. Here they are. 1. The en suffix means that the word is in its infinitive form. 2. The prefixes of y and I indicate that the word is referring to something that happened in the past but is now affecting the present. Present perfect, basically. 3. The past tense works as in modern language by either adding an ed suffix or by having the verb change in an irregular manner. I then went on to try to either confirm or debunk these assumptions by the method of random sampling, by which I mean I went through most of the verbs I have already singled out for having multiple spellings and checked against their context whether or not these 3 rules made sense. This is by no means a perfect method, but it's not like the conclusion I'll be getting from it is set in stone. At least initially, all 3 of these rules seemed to hold up. Additionally, I've noticed that the infinitive form of verbs tends to be used indiscriminately for both the present tense and the precious rare few cases where the author of these entries referred to the future. That was very interesting indeed. The less fun thing I've noticed was that sometimes an s suffix would be added to the verb, regardless of tense, though usually it would happen when the verb was used in relation to one of the royal family members. It wasn't consistent though, and to be honest with you, I have failed to find a pattern. Similarly, there were a lot of cases where, out of the blue, a word would receive an e suffix. Initially, I thought it was an adjective thing, where an adjective would receive a suffix based on the gender of the noun it described, as in great king, great queen, great king and great queen. However, later on I've noticed that the noun queen could also receive the e suffix, which would make absolutely no sense if that kind of declination happened based on gendered nouns, because, well, queen is itself a noun, which would be gendered in a system like that. So that idea went to the bin. The new idea? Well, there isn't one. The e suffix ever eludes me. I will suffer for all of eternity not knowing what it means and unable to know rest because of it. What I do know is that the e scourge is not limited to just nouns and adjectives. Oh no, verbs get that treatment too, which is why I brought it up now and not later. Basically, any word can catch an e, it clings to them and spreads like a hostile bacterium. Soon all words will end in an e, and the economy, I mean grammar, will be forever crippled. Anyway, at this point I could no longer pretend that the holy verb triforce doesn't exist, so might as well get it over with, right? Here goes nothing! To be conjugation. Tables go! That is what I arrived at. A few things of note. Both with and was were only used once when referring to the king. Meanwhile, there was used indiscriminately of the person, unlike modern day was and were. Then on top of that, there was one more spelling, wear, which also appeared only once, and it was used in relation to the concept of fashion. Perhaps this is a word reserved for abstract subjects? More importantly though, I found that ben and been are both sometimes used in addition to y and I prefixes for present perfect as operators, and sometimes they outright replace the y and I prefixes completely. My guess as to why that might be is that perhaps this form is used for emphasis or being extra formal, but I don't really know for sure. Also, that second rule is starting to look really shaky, isn't it? For can, regular can was used alongside kun and can, though the latter two exclusively appeared in phrases such as cannot thing, which happened a lot actually. Turns out, ne, verb, not was a common phrase back then. It is interesting because in essence it is a double negation. Ne seems to be a general negator and not means not, so from ne cannot we would essentially get no cannot, and then the rest of the sentence. Similar thing is happening with could. Kone and kude both appear exclusively for could not thing phrases. And this one, kude with a K and no O, was only used once for an I could phrase. Out of these four, kune was the most general, by which I mean it only appeared once in non-specialized context. For have, actually there ain't that much happening, huh? That's unusual. But yeah, as it was with ben and been, both have and have were sometimes used as operators for present perfect. Let's change the status of rule 2 from confirmed to iffy, why don't we? And those were the findings about the verbs. It's so good that this is now behind us and there is nothing left to cover whatsoever. Well, there might be one thing. Beyond is a form of to be, which appears exactly once in the texts. I haven't mentioned it while going over the tables, because I believe that it is a word which perfectly displays and encompasses the futility of what I was attempting to do here. Reverse engineering of grammatical rules by process of elimination relies on the consistency of the texts used as a basis, but it is very rare for human writing to perfectly follow the grammar 100% of the time, especially when done by someone who likely didn't receive the best education and in a time when the writing system was still young. And even that is just the tip of the iceberg. Add to this tens of thousands of years of weathering, and suddenly the mere fact that Wordsworth was able to recover any form of gibberish from these stones is in itself a miracle. Then we need to also realize that what we've been analyzing isn't the original text at all. It is a transcription of the original text from the original characters into the modern set, which in of itself had to be based on many different educated guesses and assumptions. Throughout this whole process, from writing through thousands of years worth of fog and wind to the transcription based on a photo rather than the real thing, there were so many points at which words could have become distorted and unrecognizable. I don't think beyond is an alternate spelling of to be. I think it is a spelling we've already seen. Regular be, conjoined with the word on. This idea is supported by the context in which beyond appeared in. The sentence it belongs to was talking about wearing clothes. It ain't the only example either. We also get kingdom and kingdom, where Y is randomly replaced by an I, We get Serwen and Serven, where U becomes a V. We get grass and grace, and yes, we even get way too many spelling variants of to be and can. So, you know what? I might not have good guesses for every single word in this text, and I might not have perfectly nailed the grammar which was at play here. It might not even be possible to do it, though you are welcome to try. Science is an iterative process after all. However, what I do have is a version of these texts which I believe to be good enough to show to you all. I did my best to walk the fine line between precise and palatable, and I believe it to be, at the very least, a far more accurate translation than what Wordsworth had to offer. Here it is. I once held the honor as the handmaid to King Raru and Queen Sonia, then after to his sister and to Princess Zelda. Here on this great stone and 12 more in total, I make an end to my time with the royal family. So might their remembrance be preserved for the sake of them on whom our hope rests. So sweet the song of King Raru, and so great the beauty of his sister's dance, that my eyes and ears were captive, and so tender Queen Sonia's gaze on us all, that I felt my heart fall captive too. Servant's life, though laborious, has much joy as well. Long be the life of the royal family that I love so. Sonia, Queen to Hyrule's king, by birth Hylian priestess, has herself been born of land, not of the sky above. She speaks with an open heart, earnest to all, even to the Zonai's king. This king has thought it a good adventure to learn of the land's folk. To see his head bent to listen is such a pleasure. Often would Raru, king of Kinblade, waive his real work in favor of the hunt, and often would quiet Sonia, queen of Kininsight, seek him out and return this king to kingly business. She thought it divine that she could ever find him, and told him that for his folly he seemed more human. And the king? Oh, he laughed. Not him her equal for her wit, he knew. And the queen, she laughed too, even as he scolded him. The king came late this evening, so the queen shared tales of her land, of shrines which all glowed green. From early days, since Hyrule's founding, diverse monsters have besieged and assailed her realm. Unceasing in strife, they brought the folk to despair. King and queen have set themselves to bring the scourge to an end. With might of light and power, monsters have been driven back, and the royal couple made these shrines to seal them away. These holy seals have been called Shrines of Light. Great King, great Queen, I thank you. You fought when I was still a little girl, so that I could get to know you. Quiet Mineru, the king's elder sister, falls so deep in her books that she often forgets to eat. In my worry, I do what much I can, but I fear that it has been to little avail. Of late, she talks of constructs, things she made with her hands as vessels for her spirit when the body fails. So that, she said, she could live long, in spirit, housed within this construct. Though Mineru does not seem to hold any deceit, by my faith, I cannot believe these words to be true. The weather is fine this morning, and I have an audience with this princess said to be kin by far distant years to Queen Sonia. By grace, she has been given a name most sweet. She has been called Zelda. She stirred suspicion in certain folk, for strange were her garments and sudden was her appearance here. Yet her countenance and bearing would make proof of her right blood and bond to Queen Sonia. As Zelda is to remain with us for a while, I will offer her my service as a handmaid. Recently, Princess Zelda came to see Mineru, the king's older sister. I came too for her to serve. Today, Mineru has shown Zelda a construct, the greatest I have seen. Zelda, she strongly desired to ride on it, and nothing I could say would stop her, though I did protest. Loudly. Nevertheless, she sat high upon the construct's shoulders and rode it like a horse, full of grace. My liege, so grand already, grew all the more. Fashion now favors garments adorned with mushroom patterns, and they are worn far and wide. This taste for mushrooms came from the castle's seamstress, who sought to sew clothes to please Princess Zelda. This fashion, Zelda told to the seamstress, was well loved in her true home. In her time, weird patterns of bright hues emerged in the shape of mushrooms. Our tender seamstress set her heart on copying these patterns, which then she sold to many happy people. I looked to buy some of my own, but I haven't found any. Lately, I heard tales of a strange lady who walks around in the castle in the dark of night. She and Princess Zelda seem as twins, but this one is without the light in her eyes. More of a dead thing than not. When she was asked about these walks, Princess Zelda remembered no such thing. What monster or spirit of darkness is this vision? So afraid I am of my imaginings that I cannot sleep. Since the founding, Hyrule has seen such dire hardship, but that is only a small moment of time. Mineru, the king's older sister, says of this kingdom that it cannot know what has transpired, not even in the far future. Princess Zelda tells her that this future is written already, that a champion will come from the sky. Between the two, they looked to find a way to help this champion in that distant time. Truly, they sought to raise up the Temple of Time into the sky, to ward it from the evil ones. All done, so in the far distant day, our kingdom might be saved. In my heart, I wished I could help, so I asked Mineru, "Can't you devise the means to raise these stones up into the sky?" Spoken words are not enough, but the stones will save these memories of the royal family high in the sky for that future time. Such a wondrous sight I have beheld that it cannot be justly described. I saw the Temple of Time and all the land which held it rise to the sky, both fearful and majestic. As Princess Zelda has told me, in the far distant future, a champion will come to that place, the hope that Hyrule will be saved. It is for that champion that these great stones are inscribed. The king's older sister, Mineru, is now sending these stones to the sky, so that the champion might read them. Rauru, Hyrule's king. Sonia, her queen. His elder sister Mineru, and meek Princess Zelda, all whom I served and loved, all of whom are now gone. Alone, I carve these words upon this stone. This stone and all 13 serve as the royal family's record, my work done, preserved for all ages. Many are the marks made by these beloved people. Some are seen, some unseen. When I remember these marks, I feel the flame of hope, though small, within me. It is as though these marks describe some grand design. I can't match Princess Zelda's love for her land. What more then, I ask, can I do for Hyrule's people? Let my life lead me henceforth to a worthy answer to that question. By the way, as a parting word, these people seem to have referred to Hyrule as her. They talked about their kingdom like a captain about a ship. Do with that knowledge what you will.